Hey, what's up guys, welcome one more day to Rincon de Fafallas. Today we are here to review and give suggestions or complaints on various issues in Phone Clash such as the operation of the events, matchmaking, etc. I'm going to try that this video is not a crying video, okay, but that it is something constructive and that at least I try to make Hutch reflect on the complaints of many users, using the Fafallas corner as a speaker. For what if you like the video? When it's over, watch it until the end and I invite you to share it on all your social networks and tag both Hutch and me, okay? I have made a script so as not to get lost and so that later an AI can double it for me in English and thus be able to share these concerns with more people. So if you see me more serious, drier, or reading the screen, that's why, okay? During the video you can see a part of my participation in the final phase of this week's event. Let's get on with it. One of the topics that I would like to talk about is matchmaking, both in events and in normal duels. That plus 10% that is being talked about seems very disproportionate to me. I don't know if it's confirmed by the developers, but I've heard it out there. When your team's score is low, it may not be noticeable, but once you get close to 1000 score it becomes atrocious, making it practically impossible for many to play duels with your best setup, or making it too difficult for you to have a good classification of events. Since everything that moves away from the perfect is a failure, facing the end of the season and the milestones. Although we're going to talk about this later, if I don't forget, it's okay. I understand that when I don't find a rival that could coincide with our logical matchmaking, it pairs us with a bot, and that the bot must have more equipment scored to match the average difficulty of the users. But I think that adjusting it to what I don't know, 5% seems more than enough to me, at least in some sections. This right now has a greater impact as we have implemented the sprint races, making it very difficult not only to finish a sprint but also not to ruin yourself in the attempt. Second, and continuing with the theme of events, another thing I wanted to ask is why, as I am going to show you in the images in this classification, my pilots who usually classify in the top 5 positions suddenly without knowing why they classify me 7th and 12th, for example. It is something arbitrary. It is something random. What does this depend on? Because it is quite unfair to the final result of an event, leaving you out of the top 20 just if this happens to you in one of the races and I don't tell you anything if you have the highest maximum flags. Third, and since we have brought up the subject, one of the most frequent complaints that I'm getting and that I want to convey to you is the grouping of 100 people at events on Saturdays and Sundays, but especially on Saturdays. It seems very unfair to us that the factor that is analyzed for these pairings is the maximum flags, since it takes a stratospheric advantage for those players who leave their money in the game, and the more the better. I understand that it has to provide an improvement, and why not? The possibility of better rewards and according to the improvement that these enhancing bullets and others provide, but that nothing has yet been implemented or mentioned about a more consistent ranking system to the reality of the games and the players. We find it worrying. I think that doing this would also have a positive contribution both for the user and for a much more pleasant gaming experience, as well as for Hutch, since the mere fact of having a ranking, some divisions, or how they wanted to implement it would make people sting more, and this translates into spending more money. Therefore, more benefit. In the same way, creating more categories with divisions, even if this entails less powerful and smaller prizes, and seeing an advance or regression in the divisions on a weekly basis by the user, will ensure that people do not lose the desire to play, and that the 2 months the game returns or not in an interrupted way, and is thus alternating. Another point to analyze or review would be the implementation of the rarities of the pilots and of the parts, since it seems to us, sorry for the rather stupid word, since common and rare pilots will never be used, since an epic pilot at 1 it is better than any of the other rarities, and in case it is serial pilots 11 or 12, even if this common or rare pilot is maxed out, it is worse than the epic pilot. For this, I propose either leaving it as it was before or reviewing the series in which each of these pilots is unlocked and adapting its characteristics according to that series, or if it is intended to leave it in this way, include some upgrades or some buffs depending on the rarity. For example, this week that we have Norris and Leclerc, well, the epics could be boosted by 5%. So that players a little more casual or who have not been lucky enough to unlock these pilots or have uploaded them in their epic version, well, they do not remain so off the hook and they can get closer to similar benefits to those that they have in their epic version. Obviously without him getting to overcome it, because if not then he would lose that advantage. But hey, that would be doing numbers. I also think this has another beneficial factor for Hutch, since it would force players to make more upgrades, for which it would take many more coins and people who want to do it quickly and effectively, because in the end it becomes more dollars. The fifth idea to be discussed would be the subject of the sprint race. We think a new idea is a good idea, and you give us to see that you are listening to the players, but I think you are not listening to them. I speak on the subject of race boxes. The format is fun, it encourages play, it has pretty good rewards in my view, but you can't have to force a person to play 10, 12, 15 races in a row. For many of the users, at least what my YouTube statistics say of the people who watch my videos and my streams, are not adolescent teenagers with endless time to dedicate to the game. It is practically impossible to play many races in these terms and finish the boxes, so my proposal would be to review the objective points, and if you want as a further suggestion, then put only the first driver, or the second, to add. Things like that. It would also limit the number of sprint races, or rather the time that has to pass to start this over again, since we will expand the time range of the group, in which we would not have so much stress to play those races and would also continue to be able to reward that one. Well, that person can play for a long time, and it's worth it because they will have a better chance of winning. And with this I think we would also avoid the problem of auto-clickers, which I think you know more about than me. Another doubt that many players have in the face of milestones is that the time reduction for the entire season has been removed from the boxes. They wonder about this, why this decision has been made, since it has caused many complaints or disturbances, and that at least an explanation is worth it. I transmit this suggestion. After facing the seventh suggestion, facing the most controversial milestone is the best result in the event. I think that as a suggestion to not generate so much stress, because in the end, we already know the difficulties that this has, and to encourage people to make an effort, I would enable more medals with their corresponding milestones. For example, top 50 of top 20 medals, etc. Another thing that we would like to see reviewed, and we haven't heard anything about it all season, is the efficiency of the drivers when they have run out of tires or have broken the car. There are races in which the drivers complete more than half of a lap around the circuit without being barely penalized, which does not resemble reality at all and makes it very frustrating. And finally, to say goodbye, there is the last one for this video. There is the last one. Thank you very much for listening to me, for listening to you, for putting up with this video that I think is interesting to analyze, and whose objective I have done not only with the fact of criticizing but also to convey the opinion of many of the users and my own and give proposals for improvement. As always, thank you all for watching the videos, and if you do not want to miss any of the content and so on, then you already know, subscribe to the bell. What I say is always worth it, and of course, leave the comments for more suggestions or doubts and so on. Together we will improve and learn. Without further ado, Fafallas says goodbye. See you later.